We're going. Hey everybody, Dave Putz here from JKP Holdings.
Nathan
Welcome
Turner.
back. Nathan Turner over here, Canadian Note Guy over here, just joining you this Friday or Friday morning for that matter. Nate, how you been, man? How are things going?
I'm good. I'm just thinking you actually probably got buried in snow this couple of days ago.
Yeah, it's been a little hectic, I would say. It was expected about a dusting and maybe an inch. My kids were excited about getting about 3 to 4 inches in a matter of a couple hours.
Yeah.
And now it's snow blowing at 7:30 at night. So it's been a week. I'm sure are you guys getting any snow yet?
We've had a little bit. Like there's nothing on the ground right now. We totally missed that storm altogether. It skirted just south of us, so we didn't get to see any of it.
Oh, I have to say I'm a little jealous. That's good to hear you guys.
I wish.
My kids are upset that there's no like missing school right now. They're like,
yeah,
snow day. They're still stuck at school. So I guess in that aspect, it's been pretty good. So 2020 has been a whirlwind change, and weirdly enough, in the last 10 plus years we've been doing this, notes have gone inflow. I think we talked about a year plus ago, and September was a time frame things went low.
Yeah.
2020 was one of those kind of years.
It was an interesting year. It was odd because obviously early on there was a lot of uncertainty and like what's going to happen, and everyone was totally on edge, and so a lot of things just kind of like almost stopped. It came to a very much of a very slow crawl there for a little while, but interestingly enough, I resell everything I buy, right? So this is actually my best year ever. I had a great year. And then buying too, I didn't really have very much of an issue finding anything to purchase this year. So that's been great.
Yeah, it's been one of those years where it just didn't make sense. And we're seeing inventory. I mean, we were talking before camera rolling, and that with inventory the way that was, I think that the inventory was ebb and flow for all year long, but we didn't see a lot for a couple months because no one knew what to expect. I think time frames for foreclosures were kind of screwy, and people were kind of holding steady, while at the same time pricing was outrageous at points.
At points, yeah, and you kind of had to navigate that a little bit. Hopefully, everyone did that well and got by okay. But yeah, with timelines being screwed up again, kind of not as bad, obviously, as what it was back in 2010 and 11.
Yeah,
where delays were outrageous. There are still counties that are not opened up yet. I've got a Cook County loan that was supposed to foreclose in March or April, and it's indefinite at this point. So who knows when that's going to happen. But anyway, but it's been an interesting year. One of the surprising things to me was that with all we've heard on the news and everything else about people not being able to make payments and things, I think you and I talked about this, but I've talked with several other note people, and when we look at our own portfolios, we're not seeing a huge drop.
Correct.
Yeah. It's interesting. And so I'm not exactly sure what that means for the future. If we're going to see the tidal wave of non-performers come like everyone is kind of talking about. Yeah. That sounds right. But when you talk to people that are in the business, their default rate has not gone up significantly. So no,
and we all expected it. We're all like, oh crap, we talk privately to groups, and it's like this is not good, guys. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna handle it? Mm-hmm. And one of our key things that we talked about is we don't want to get to a point where we have to foreclose on people.
Right.
We don't want to get into the REO and eviction situation, because as we both know, that's a whirlwind right now.
Yeah.
And it's nervous to say that. However, we found that most people continue to perform.
Yeah.
Was it helped by the government? Maybe, but I don't know. I never was able to put that together. Most of them, I think, 2 defaulted. I think we got like a 2 to 3% default rate, and that was it, which was shocking.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to know, and I don't know that we're going to have the data on this for at least another couple of months.
Yep.
Because how much of that was government funding, help propping things up, and how much of that
Yep.
was just forbearances? But even forbearances, I didn't have a lot of those, and I don't think a lot of people had. Not
Yeah.
a huge percentage.
No, not the ones I've talked to. I think it's more the other side of it. When things went haywire,
Yeah,
is when things went a little nuts for people's. So I think that with 2020, people just went on pause, but they were still paying their bills. And I agree with you. Government lifting them up was a huge part of all that.
hmm
But I think that, I'm curious where the job loss was. Was it in, was it as bad as it was? Was it going on in different sectors that just didn't affect us?
yeah,
Um, and I think that, with 2020, as it laid out, what was broadcasted live and all the worries is different from what really happened in
yeah,
different aspects without getting political. And I think that just, you're right. We're not going to understand any of this for months down the line.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the true fallout really is, because it's too early to tell. We've
Yep.
had government help all along the way, and I suspect that with the new government, we're going to see more of that coming along the lines. That's kind of their MO, and so that
Yeah.
it's likely that we're going to see more of that propping up. And but then the question is, how long can that last? You can't just keep paying people to do nothing forever. That doesn't work.
Yeah, I know that I recently got sent a message. Somebody said they're putting out another stimulus plan, possibly Monday.
I heard about
I didn't
that.
read I didn't read the details of it, but what does that mean for us? And will they kick down the curb foreclosure for all the federally backed loans? And I don't
Right.
know.
And that's a
Um,
big question for us.
yeah,
It's hard to say that. It's hard to imagine that this won't have a tremendous effect, but so far we're not really seeing it. So don't know.
yeah,
So far we're just not seeing it.
yeah. And I don't know if we're looking at a pool of non-performers now, and the question is, do we jump on it with this whole vaccine coming through? And I don't know what that looks like.
hmm
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it sets up a weird 2021,
Yeah,
because there's so many unknowns. And I mean, it's interesting because even I think of a year ago before COVID hit, when we were at the IMN conference.
yeah,
I mean, at every IMN conference, frankly, when they're doing the grand overview, and it's like, well, if the Fed does this, then this might happen, but if they do that, then this might happen. So it's always
yeah,
unknown. But
yeah,
this just takes it to a whole other level
yeah.
of unknown.
It's a mixture between COVID situation, the government changing,
Yeah,
whatever aisle you fall on,
right.
and not knowing what they're going to do and then how they're going to handle this kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting. And I'd love to see what other people impression of 2020 was. So feel free to put a post up or a comment in the box. And,
yeah,
this is an open conversation. And it leads to, like you said, what's going to happen in 2021. And I like the fact that you want to talk about goal setting and achievable things that we kind of hold accountability there.
yeah,
And with the unknowns, it makes it a little more difficult, but really kind of focuses you on what you should be doing every day.
absolutely. Part of it is interesting. We're all kind of waiting for another tidal wave, but at the same time, like we're saying, we're still seeing product, and a lot of it is recycled product, and a large percentage of that is still from 2008 fallout.
Yeah,
So it has not gone away. That it's not a
yeah,
problem. It's just disappeared. So with that, and then with uncertainty, surely we're in for another, correction, crash, whatever it might be. I expect we'll see more product coming online here in the next anywhere from 6 to 18 months. I don't know, but
yeah,
surely.
yeah.
There'll be
And I
more.
think that, when you said that old product has come back, I mean, Fannie Mae and Freddie weren't selling any of their stuff in 2010, 2013. They just started in the last couple of years selling stuff. So all that inventory is still not trickling down yet.
Right.
The big funds that are buying 100, 500 million from Fannie,
hmm
they're still buying like crazy, and it's still old inventory.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like that's slowly trickling down, and they didn't want to sell anything because they didn't want the whirlwind of
Right.
selling it. So I think that I'm curious what the inventory will trickle down, because most of those big boys are selling out to other big boys that weren't around 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
what inventory will trickle down through that filter that wasn't there when we began?
That's a good point. They weren't there. There was no outlet 10 years
No.
ago. So now there most definitely is. And so now they've got somewhere to put it.
And will they get rid of low level fruit kind of hanging out there? Will they get rid of high level stuff? Will they bulk off like they did before? Do they have the infrastructure? That was a reason they didn't get involved before, is they didn't have the infrastructure they do now, and the servicing is totally different things. We have
Yeah.
services was created out of this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Madison was created from this stuff. So I'm curious what it's going to be like. But with that said, with all these unknowns, I love to talk about where we look to do, what we want to learn in 2021 as investors, and what do we want to focus on coming in this 6 to 12 months, and where do we see ourselves in a 12-month period? So give me some bullet points. We'll go back and forth on this. What are you looking to focus on?
So I mean, I'm doubling down. I'm starting a fund and putting that together now. Just kind of hammering out details on that, and it'll be ready early in the new year. Not that I'm advertising that. That's
Yeah.
I'm just mentioning that's coming. But that's what I'm doing. So I'm getting ready, and I'm fully expecting. Between what's already out there and what I expect to be coming down the pipeline here in the near future, I'm getting ready for that.
And what kind of inventory are you looking to purchase net? Lower level, CFDs, first, seconds, performing, non-performing?
It's been really interesting. In preparation for this, we've been doing a lot of analysis. So, I mean, 5 years ago, when I started buying loans the way I am now, I was really going after the low stuff. So like property values between 30 and 60, 75 maybe. And looking at over the last years, what we've closed and what's gone well and what hasn't. Guess what?
Yeah.
It did.
And because one problem with that kind of property, and your profits are gone.
That's it. So I had a lot of really great home runs, but if I look at, over the last 3 years, I think there were 8 times where it was a loss. Every one of those was, property value under 50,000.
Yeah.
So that's my target has shifted over time, and now I'm looking still between 50 and about 150 property value.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go back to our conversation last time about how do you bid on that and things like that. And that's go watch that video. But
yeah.
But that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I think that's we came to that conclusion as well, that those low level fruit is attractive when you first get in, because you could buy a $5,000-$10,000 purchase.
Yeah.
But when you get into the thick of things, the cost is not based on the property value. Right. Foreclosure cost is the set price no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So to get a higher value property, the percentage of rehabbing a bathroom for $5-10 grand in subject A at 30 grand value versus a $100,000 house, the dollar amount goes up a little bit, but not so much that it makes a killer situation. When you buy a house, our first property I think was worth 30 grand. Yeah. And just to do a kitchen was like $3 grand. I'm like, holy God, like it killed the deal. It was 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets into that kind of stuff. So,
and even that home runs, it's funny because even the home runs on those, percentage wise, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
You're bringing home $3,000 and they're like, oh,
yeah, like 10%. I mean, 10%. It sounds wonderful. I made a 30% return. It's like, well, that's great. But I think that there's still people chasing that dollar amount, and I think that I'm not saying not to do that.
No, for sure.
I think that a huge risk, because when pricing was different before, it's different. But I think that when you're first getting in, I'm encouraging people to buy partials.
Yeah,
I think it's a great way to get in with $5,000 or $6,000 to not make the headaches and mistakes that we made, and not get into a non-performer in Cincinnati, Ohio, or Sandusky, Ohio, or wherever you're buying at, right? Or Memphis, Tennessee. And instead of buying a $30,000 asset, maybe you can get a nice property in Florida or a property in Texas that's performing, and you buy a partial at whatever yield you're looking for a period of 3-4 years, and you fund the seller to go buy more assets.
Yeah.
And then it works out, and then it goes and gives you more stuff.
Yeah.
I think that is a great avenue for people who have Roth IRA, $5,000, $6,000. Go approach someone who has a seller who has a performing asset and say, listen, can I buy year payments? You
Mhm.
get the skill level, you get the experience, you get the personal sale agreement, and you make a relationship.
Yeah, and it's a great return on a partial as well. So it's
Yeah,
definitely something worth looking at.
yeah.
They're
So
partials are great. They really are. They're kind of a magical subset of everything that we're doing.
yeah, there's so many subsets, and I think that what we're looking to focus on is still buying that property value at 50 grand or higher.
Yeah.
Aaron Quinn said hello, by the way. So I think that with everything going on, I'm looking at buying assets that are, still in the 50 to 300,000 property value,
Mhm.
depending on what state. We're looking at states in the southeast usually, but we're looking at other states. We have a few states we're starting to avoid. Ohio is one of the states I just don't like anymore for
Really?
multiple reasons,
Yeah.
time frames and whatnot. But I think that we're looking at, we're still looking first. We're still looking to buy performing and non-performing assets. We're buying seconds performing most of the time. We don't buy too many non-performers. Quentin, how are you, my man? But we're looking at buying more of those down assets.
Yeah.
2020, we were just kind of in a freeze bubble.
Mhm.
In the last 10 years, we've been buying those kind of assets, but what we did in 2020 is we kind of changed our percentage of returns on non-performing assets with the uncertainty of how long we're going to hold this thing until we get out.
Right.
If we get stuck in a BK situation, holy crap. So in 2021, we're going to be hesitant and increase our required returns for non-performer until we have an idea of what's going to happen because we
Okay.
don't know time frames.
Yeah.
But we're going to still focus on those big assets, the over 50 grand in value. We're going to try getting some CFDs if we can find them at that value. But we're really going to start looking at getting into some commercial stuff, some mixed use stuff. Um, we're thinking that's going to come to fruition. It's just something I haven't bought before. So I'm kind of
Right.
curious about that.
You're looking at office space.
Office space, maybe a restaurant that went out of business and see if we can kind of buy the note on it and,
Sure.
save the business like we'd save
Yeah.
the homeowners, right? And
Yeah.
buy it for a good price, get it maybe performing because we get this whole thing opened up and maybe some ideas and work with people smarter than I am to figure out how to make that happen and understand how commercial notes are different from residential and understand that piece. That's one of the learning experiences I'm hoping. If anyone listening knows that some experience on that, I'd love to talk to you. Buying those kind of notes could make another avenue, angle on what we're looking to do. New learning experience as well. I don't see a lot of commercial. I don't know what your tape's been in the past.
I don't either. I'd be interested in exploring it, but same. I don't see a lot, but I'm also not looking for it. So
Yeah.
I wonder if I went looking for it, how easy or hard would it be to find?
We have a few people like Massachusetts and whatnot that gives us like on-offs. And we have a few brokers that we've both know that have some great inventory that we go from there.
Mhm.
Sean just asked a question, how to go from 0 to 100 notes in 2021. The biggest thing is get tapes, get inventory, and attend online webinars as well as conferences. You're going to find sellers that way and investors who may want to get out right now, like, crap, I'm out of here. I have 20 assets. I want to just get rid of stuff. So Sean, if that's the kind of question you're looking at, like how to get into that next level,
I would
if you
also
have,
caution
yeah,
though, if you're going from zero to go from 0 to 100, that's a huge leap.
yeah,
A huge leap. That's eating
0 to
the
1
whole-
is big.
right. That's eating the
Yeah.
whole elephant all at once.
Yeah.
That's a big jump. But if you can go 0 to 10,
Yeah.
figure out how to manage those 10 and then go from 10 to 20. That's how I would advise going about that.
And
don't just go and buy 100 notes. You'll drop.
yeah, or the 10,000 that we know well of.
Yeah.
So, I think the big thing on that is systems. And I think what we want to do is, keep pushing our systems, keep making them better. We're always improving our systems. And we looking at buying seller finance notes that kind of fallen off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at doing 10 notes, guys, not 100. Yes. But just you mean go 100 miles an hour. So I think though with this situation is we're looking at doing buying seller finance notes and looking at county records because that may be another angle. So
Yeah.
commercial notes is something we want to get into. We want to look into seller finance and really kind of dive down besides buying lists. I don't know if you've bought lists in the past. We have,
I've never.
and the one that stands out to me was we bought a note, and the note on one of the notes on the list that we liked a lot was released by the county government in 1985.
Oh wow.
So maybe I had a bad situation, maybe I've experience, but I said, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I bought it with our friend Liz, and I'm like, this is just nuts. And it just gave me a sour taste. So we want to find a different way of doing that. And as most people know, I like automation, but I'd love to find that seller finance situation that works out, and we can kind of go from county to county and year by year and kind of allocate which ones are. A
Yeah.
lot of people have asked about buying from banks. What's your knowledge, experience, what you've heard from people buying from banks?
Have at her. My experience, here's what I'll tell you. So I back in 2010, that was one of the things you heard about when I first was getting started. It's, oh yeah, you can buy directly from a bank. So I went in. I had a project to go in Columbus, Ohio. So we went in. In fact, not even in Columbus. We went. I don't remember the town, just a suburb, and it was just a little local bank.
Yep.
3 branches in the whole state, that kind of thing. Just a small guy, because that's made sense to go to the smaller guys, and you're not going to buy from Bank of America, all that kind of thing. So went in and talked to him. Brick wall. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I mean, obviously banks are selling to somebody, but not to me.
Yeah. And I know there's some software out there to kind of track that kind of stuff to see where inventory is at. But I've heard a lot of people make this suggestion to try it out. I've heard very little success. A friend of ours, Adam, had a slam dunk in San Antonio a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And that went really crazy because the collateral was weird, the funding was weird. But I think that, this idea that banks sell, so we should contact them, don't always correlate. Because most time, I promise you, walk in your local bank, open a bank account, ask the person behind the desk how to get a hold of non-performing or special assets. They'll say, what are you talking about?
Exactly. They have no idea.
And you get that inventory. Usually I've seen a couple of tapes, and it's like warehouse and factory. So,
yeah.
And
the other thing is, if you're talking to a bank, they're not going to sell off 1 or 2 or even 10 notes. They want to sell off 100 or 300 or 500 at a time. Like, they're talking big dollars. So for the general, our level of
mom and pop shops,
even the guy with $5 million, honestly, you're going to have a hard time placing that with the bank. That's too small.
Yeah, unless you have a great in, which are amazing if you have a great in. I think that for us, even the big funds that we know of, we talk to, they're not buying from banks.
No.
They're buying from each other, right? Merrill Lynch is buying from this fund, and they're buying from Freddie, or they're buying from, all these big things are kind of intertwined. It's weird how more that we get into this, the more we find it smaller and so tight.
Yeah.
But we're buying from other investors. I'll buy from you, you buy from me. And that's really how it goes, because sometimes the deal for you need to get out of a deal, sunsets for whatever reason, your investor wants to get paid off, or you've held it for a period of time, made a killing, you got it reperforming, and now you want to cash out.
Right.
And I think that happens more than we want to believe it does. Even at the big note exchanges, that's some investor selling to another investor. That's not a bank listing it.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't think buying from banks is impossible, but it's
a lot of work.
Yeah. Hard work, and your chances are not great. So not to say never try it, but.
So by next year, where are you looking to be system-wise, inventory-wise, structure-wise? What's your crystal ball say?
By next year, by the end of next year, currently I've got about 80 notes that I'm dealing with. My goal for when I kind of first started was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have 100 notes? And that I've kind of revised that a little bit, just because I started out with the little guys, and I'm like, 100 notes at $3,000 a pop profit. That's great, but what if I could do 50 notes, at $10,000 profit each? That makes more sense.
Yep,
less
it's less
work, more
headaches.
money. So that's kind of 100 notes is still on the still on my list of goals that I want to get, but it's a different level of asset than I used to buy. I'd like to have somewhere between 3 and 4 million deployed, in play. So I've got about 3 to 4 million funding 100 notes that are cycling through in one way or another.
Yeah. I see myself in the same situation. Is one of the questions is what's the best way to collateralize when raising money? If you're talking about collateralizing a loan, you can definitely do that. There's not a lot of buyers that I've experienced. I know Dave Van Horn does some stuff with that. You probably hook up with Eddie Speed, but collateralizing a loan, a collateral paper is done. It absolutely is done, but it's just something we're not experienced in.
Right.
But raising money, doing it the way through a private equity, like we are doing it through personal funds, or doing what Nathan doing, raising a fund, is probably the best way to raise money. And what you're doing is basically saying you split profits and structure the way you want to structure it through. But then you can't advertise, depending on what kind of fund you're running, you can't advertise, you can't talk about it and whatnot. So that would be a good way to raise money that way, unless you can do other ways. Again, like we have private equity, so I'm not stuck on doing a fund where I'm raising capital. But I think for us, getting to a spot where we're buying loans on a regular basis is key for us. But we also, like you, I'm not looking to buy 1,000 loans next year. If it comes up, it comes up. My funding partners and we're more about buying the asset by buying numbers. I don't care if I buy one loan or if I buy 100. If I buy 100 and they don't work, then they don't work.
Yeah.
We're not in a rush. I'm not looking to compete with somebody else and say, well, you bought 10, I have to buy 10.
Right.
It doesn't always work that way. And
No.
what works for you doesn't work for me, works out. So I think that for us is I want to get more systems in place. I want to get in a position where we're buying a little different notes. I want to learn about stuff. And I like to get one commercial deal on our belt, just one to get the experience.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to work on finding the methodology to find the seller financing without using a list to buy from.
Okay.
And I really think that would be a good avenue because of all the stuff that's going on now. There's going to be a lot of people in bad shape.
Yeah.
For one reason or another.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get those from lists, hopefully. We're going to get them from local people, just putting the county records out there. They have a mortgage on file, they put the lien, and we get a hold of it. Are you to get any tax liens or any kind of mechanic liens?
I recently talked to a fellow that does tax liens, and he was telling me how it's so much better than notes. And so I'm curious. I'd like to look into it more, but so far I've had to redeem taxes on properties that I'm dealing with, but I've never purchased tax liens. But it's an interesting avenue. I'm not sure I fully understand it well enough to do anything about it, but it's interesting.
We also been offered to buy mobile home park liens and stuff like that. And as much as I love to explore it and be interested in it, it's just a whole new world to be learning about. And I think that we're not done learning about this world, not done buying in this world. So moving on to another space, just not for me. I'm not a big rental person. I don't like rentals. But I think that getting into that trailer park idea is getting back into a rental scenario, seller finance scenario, and just not for me. But with your systems, with your fund that you're coming out with, and we're not advertising people, right? We're just talking about funds.
No.
What systems do you need to have in place to get to another level for you guys?
So I'm very hands-on, which there's pluses and minuses to that. On the one hand, I can't analyze an entire tape in 5 minutes. On the other hand, I may find notes that the automated system would miss.
Correct.
So that's and it's a kind of I don't want to say a gut feel, but it's more of an art than a science.
Yes.
In a lot of cases, where if I'm looking at a tape, I can look at my numbers, and again, an automated system might pass that up, but I would look at it and identify ones that would work for me because of ABC.
Yeah.
So I like doing that. But
It's
that's
funny you say that.
yeah.
It's funny you say, because I was talking to our friend Tim one time, and we were talking about how do you truly do a good valuation of a property.
It's
And we
tough.
spent probably 20 minutes and we came up with, I think, 80 to 100 different points to make a property. And we only spent 20 minutes on it. So
Yeah.
railroad tracks, schools, churches, crime. There's so many things that go into play that you're right. The gut feeling really tells you more than actual just numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And if you can get through that and get that return, it's great. But and it's something you learn. It's something you kind of explain and talk about and say, hey, what do you think about this? And you miss something, or we have different opinions. I've debated with people, is crime a real factor when you're buying a note? And to me, I don't agree it is, because people are still buying in crime areas.
I agree with you on that.
Right? It
Yeah.
sucks. It is what it is, but people are still buying in areas so they can still sell the property.
Yeah.
You may not like living there. Bars in the window is something I don't want to do, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Organization does help that. I think that it's hard to teach somebody how to analyze a property value.
It is. It's tough. It's tough. So as far as systems, that's one that I looked at, kind of some kind of an automation like you do, but I actually prefer doing it manually. One of the biggest things that really kind of took me to another level was just like a tracking software. And I use Pipedrive, and I think it's fantastic. It helps me keep organized, and notes and phone calls and everything is just all in one place, and I can keep it all together. So
just explain a little bit about what that does. Is it a to-do list for those who are not familiar with Pipedrive?
So Pipedrive for me in the note space, so it's a CRM, customer relations management tool. And to me, the biggest advantage to Pipedrive is that my Gmail is in Pipedrive live. So I don't have to go and download it several times a day or anything like that and update it. It's automatic. If something comes into my Gmail, it automatically shows up in Pipedrive. So then from there, I can attach an email to a specific property, to a specific loan that I'm dealing with. And then I can go into that loan and I can, create notes, and I've got all the property information, all the loan information, everything that I want all in one place. And then on top of that, then it also has like a task list. So I can set it so that every day I know exactly what I do when I get into the office. And if it's on the list for that day, that's what I do. And then, I set it for the next day. If I need to follow up, I'll set it for a week from now to follow up. And it helps keep everything very organized and make sure nothing falls through the cracks.
Do you remember what the cost of that is a month? I forget what it is.
I don't. I think I pay yearly.
Okay.
$100, $200 a year, something.
Okay.
I don't remember.
That's all good.
Not terribly expensive, but extremely useful.
And those, I know that Sean mentioned going from 0 to 10 loans.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
I hate to scare people off with that, but get your first loan and get a feel for it.
Yes.
If you buy a first loans performer, it's gonna be really easy. You're tracking your payments. There's no servicing notes. There's no to-dos. You're just checking it monthly and excited when that check comes in, and then get pissed off when you realize that your P&I is not your P&I coming in the bank account.
Right.
Your escrow hits or whatever. So I think that when we do stuff like that, having that system in place is, you don't know what systems you need until you do it. And what works for you works for someone else, doesn't work for someone else. But I do agree, learning the system is a good thing. Pipedrive is an option. We've used in Trello, we've used Google Sheets and whatnot, but there's no right way or wrong way. We use Trello for just for tracking deal situations. We also use Google Sheet with automated emails, so that if something comes up, a flag comes up like, hey, we didn't receive a payment for 60 days on this loan, I'll get an email from that sheet saying, hey, listen, this loan has been out. And then it also shoots out, I get an email daily of all the tasks I have to do on all my loans, to know what it is. And an email goes out to my assistant to also describe what we need to get done.
And like you say, it's what works for you. I know you're a big spreadsheet person, so that that worked really well for you. I actually transferred from spreadsheets over to Pipedrive because I
Yeah.
just, to me, it was getting way too complicated, way too, I had my color coding going on. And you know what? For 10 notes, that's fine.
Yep, absolutely.
After about 50 notes or so, that gets cumbersome.
Yes.
And it gets confusing. So you
Yeah.
have to switch over at some point.
Yeah. And missing timelines and deadlines is huge in the space, right? Time is of the essence,
Oh, yeah.
especially for, if that 90 days delinquency happens, you're sending out that paper as soon as possible to get that clock starting.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation where taxes are due, you need to make sure or forced place insurance is due, or if you're doing now the question is, do you do forced place insurance or not? These are the kind of things you don't even think about. Well, of course you do. Well, guess what? How many forced place insurance policies have I actually got funds from?
Right.
Different than I thought I would. Right. You're excited, you got insurance in place, something happened, you're like, I can prove it, it's perfect. And it's a no. For whatever crazy reason, it's a no.
Yeah.
Sorry, insurance friends.
Actually, I just got paid off on one. I haven't received the check yet, but they just notified me that I'm going to get the check on one. It was actually in Port Arthur.
Okay.
They got the hurricane twice this season.
Yep.
So that needed it. So
I paid for the insurance.
Yeah, so that worked. And it's honestly, it wasn't as high as I was hoping as I was going to get, but the house wasn't destroyed either. So
yeah,
it will be okay. But anyway.
Yeah. So I'm glad we talked about 2021, our goals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think our numbers are going to be dependent on what happens, but I'd love to pick up another 20, 25 more assets in 2021. If the numbers work out, we'll go to 50 to 100 without a problem. We are looking to buy more pools than we did in the past. We bought pools in 2020. We bought pools in 2019. But in the last 6 months, we're buying onesie twosies again, just because the inventory has been kind of weird for us.
Yeah.
We're kind of dialed in.
Yeah, definitely looking at pools. I'm optimistic that it'll be a poor economy going ahead.
This is true. House prices is really high still here, which is amazing. Houses are still selling like this. A property on my block is selling for, if I would have BPO'd it, probably it's selling for about 15% higher than it should. I don't know why. I don't get it. It's just what's available.
Well, and refinance rates are still record low. So that's actually been a really cool thing in the last year and a half or so. I've had several payoffs, much more than I have in past years. Just because interest rates are so low that people are refinancing. I encourage that.
Yeah, and if anyone here has a mortgage, we're actually doing it right now. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm saving on money and whatnot. It's amazing. We thought our rates were low beforehand. We're dropping down again to refinance out and continue. And my mortgage guy's like, hey, let me explain more amortization schedule to you. I'm like, don't bother. I'm okay.
I got this.
Yeah. So, but I think that going from, getting your first loan and all that stuff, this is a great opportunity to just sit down with people who aren't doing as much as they did in 2019 and work with them. There's different avenues you can help out and mentor and broker and whatnot, and just getting out there. There is a lot of inventory that's circling around. Personally, get on a phone call with if you're buying your first loan or whatever, get on a phone call with a couple sellers and just pick the brain. Hey, listen, what can I do to get an asset off your plate? What asset are you most looking to sell off? Don't ask the question why, because you question yourself if the truth answer is coming out or not.
Right.
But just dot your I's, cross your T's, talk to your attorney and get things done like Aaron Quinn was listening in on. But, I think that 2021 can be a really good year. Just be open-minded and look around.
Yeah, there are so many opportunities on the horizon. So just be aware, keep your head up.
Yeah.
Watch.
Well, guys, we're going to take off next week. Christmas is happening, and my wife would kill me if we did one of these things during the day for her. And I think we're going to reconvene either the following week during the week or the following week after that. I hope these are pretty helpful for you. Nathan, I appreciate, man, jumping in with you. I think the first time we actually met, we had been on a plane flight home. It's been great.
Yes.
Chatting with you and spend time with you, man. But let's reconvene next week the following week and we'll see what's going on.
Yeah, you bet. Good
Thanks,
talk.
guys.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.